Hey, I'm Sophia. Before we start, go grab a snack and get comfortable for a bit. These stories take their time, and they are told the way I'd tell a friend late at night. I really hope you enjoy them. This story has one update on it and my own opinion at the end. Comment and tell me if you agree. Let's begin. My sister tried to sabotage my engagement, so I planned a surprise that shocked everyone. I could feel the microphone shaking in my hand as I looked straight at her across the room. Chloe froze with a canopy halfway to her mouth, eyes widening when she realized every single person at that function center had turned toward me, following my gaze. The lights from the chandeliers bounced off the projector screen behind me, where I'd paused on a very specific screenshot. Her name at the top, her words in black and white. My heartbeat was so loud it drowned out the low music. I swallowed, the bubbles from the champagne I'd barely touched burning at the back of my throat. Daniel's hand rested at the small of my back, a steady weight reminding me I wasn't alone. I cleared my throat and forced my voice not to crack. "Since we're all here to celebrate love and honesty," I said, feeling the room collectively lean in, I figured now was the perfect time to finally tell the truth about what my sister has been doing behind my back. It was a Saturday night when my life forked into the version I'm living now and the version where I kept quiet and let my family rewrite my story.
I'm 29F.
My fiancé, now husband, but we'll get there, is Daniel, 31M. And my older sister, Chloe, 32F. Has been the star of every family narrative since the day she was born. She was the golden child. Better grades, more outgoing, prettier in that effortless Instagram way. My parents never said, "We prefer her" out loud, but you don't have to say the quiet parts when they're written into every reaction. If I got an 85, it was "Why not 95?" When she got a 75, it was "You tried your best, we're so proud." I learned early that my safest position was the responsible one. The one who didn't cause trouble, who helped mom in the kitchen, who remembered birthdays. The emotional support daughter. As adults, that dynamic shape-shifted into something subtler, but still suffocating. Chloe worked in PR for a fashion brand, all events and curated stories. I became a project manager in tech, which, to my parents, might as well have been something with computers, who knows. They could explain Chloe's job at parties. Mine was just she works in the city. When I met Daniel 3 years ago, it felt like the first thing in my life that was purely mine. We met at a mutual friend's board game night. He is the kind of person who actually reads rulebooks and explains them without sounding condescending, which immediately put him in unicorn territory. We started off slow, coffee after game nights, walks along the river, sharing podcasts. He's patient and thoughtful in ways that still disarm me. When he met my family for the first time, he brought my mum flowers and listened to my dad talk about interest rates for 40 minutes straight. Chloe liked him at first. Or at least, she liked our story. She kept telling people, "My little sister finally found someone who can put up with her spreadsheets." She offered to help me pick outfits, fix my hair, suggest little tweaks to my makeup. She gave unsolicited advice on when it was too soon to say "I love you." It was a little much, but I told myself that was just how she was. Then, about a year into my relationship with Daniel, her life imploded. Her long-term boyfriend, Scott, broke up with her, abruptly, messily, and very publicly. He got engaged to someone else within 6 months. My parents went into emergency PR mode, rebranding the breakup as mutual and for the best. But Chloe took it as an unforgivable personal humiliation. That's when her attitude toward my relationship shifted. Little comments started slipping out. "Careful not to get too comfortable. Guys like that always leave when they get bored." Or, "Wow, he's really good with you. Must be exhausting for him though, managing your moods." The real alarm bell came the night she got drunk at a family barbecue and pulled me aside near the laundry. "You know he's not marrying you, right?" she slurred, wine sloshing dangerously close to my dress. "Men like him don't marry girls like us. You're the trial run before he levels up." I laughed it off at the time, but something about the way she said us, like we were on the same sinking ship, lodged under my skin. Fast forward to last year. Daniel proposed on a random Tuesday night, at home, while I was in an oversized hoodie and fluffy socks. There was no grand gesture, no photographer hidden in bushes. He cooked my favorite pasta. We ate it on the couch watching some terrible reality show, and then he paused the TV and said, "I don't want to do any of this without you. Will you marry me?" I ugly cried. We sat on the carpet, both laughing and shaking, while he slid the ring onto my finger. It wasn't huge or flashy, but it was exactly the style I loved, simple gold band, lab diamond, because he knows I care about that stuff. We told our parents the following Sunday. Mom screamed. Dad actually smiled, which for him is like a standing ovation. Chloe's reaction was complicated. She squealed, hugged me, grabbed my hand to inspect the ring, all the right motions. But her eyes flicked to Daniel as she said, "Wow. You really committed, huh?" In this tone I couldn't quite read. I decided to make her my maid of honor. Partly because I thought it might soften whatever jagged thing had grown in her since her breakup, partly because I knew my parents would be offended if I chose my best friend Lily instead. I told myself it would be healing. Spoiler, it was not. From day one of wedding planning, Chloe treated my engagement like a rebrand pitch for her own reputation. She created a Pinterest board before I did. She made a joint WhatsApp group with me and Mum called Operation Wedding Glow Up. She accidentally posted a close-up of my ring on Instagram before I'd even told some friends, captioned, "My baby sis is off the market." I pulled her up on that one. "Can you please not post things without checking with me?" I said over coffee. I hadn't even told my boss yet. She pouted. "Oh my God, relax. It was just a ring pic. You should be grateful exposure is good. Also, you're welcome for the flattering angle." I let it go. Not worth the fight, I thought. There's a theme here. I keep giving her benefit of the doubt rope, and she keeps knitting a noose. The sabotage ramped up slowly. A venue tour booking that turned out to not exist, so we showed up like idiots. An email miscommunication that almost cost us our preferred photographer. Little things that, in isolation, could be chalked up to disorganization. Then came the texts. One night, about 4 months before the planned engagement party, Daniel showed up at my apartment looking like someone had kicked his puppy. "Can we talk?" he asked, voice tight. I felt that horrible drop in my stomach that tells you exactly what kind of conversation is about to happen. We sat on the couch. He pulled out his phone, opened his messages, and handed it to me. On the screen was a message from an unknown number, sent earlier that day. "Hey Daniel, this is going to sound harsh, but you deserve to know. Emma has been talking to her ex again. She told me she's not sure she wants to marry you, and is keeping her options open. I'd want to know if I were you." Saw the below it were screenshots, me, allegedly, in a Facebook Messenger chat with my ex, Liam, saying things like, "I miss how simple things were with you, and sometimes I wonder if I'm rushing into this engagement." The profile picture and name were mine. The font was mine. The words, though,
Not.
my vision blurred. My chest squeezed. "I never wrote this," I said, too loudly. "Daniel, I did not say this." He rubbed his temples. "I want to believe you. I really do. It's just, why would someone go to this effort to lie? Because some people are artists of sabotage, I thought." I took a photo of the unknown number. I messaged Liam from my own phone, demanding to know if we'd been talking. He replied within minutes, confused as hell.
No?
"Haven't spoken to you in like 3 years. Everything okay?" The pieces didn't fit yet, but they were on the table. I did what project managers do best. I documented. I screenshotted everything. I forwarded the unknown number to my own phone, then plugged it into WhatsApp. No profile picture, but the about status read, "Do it with style." My stomach dropped. That exact phrase, "do it with style," was the tagline Chloe had used for her personal blog in uni. She'd had it printed on a tote bag she still used sometimes. The room suddenly felt too small. "Daniel," I said slowly, "I think I know who sent this." We went into investigation mode. Daniel called the number from a different phone while I watched. It rang twice, then cut off. 30 seconds later, My sister's name popped up on my screen in an incoming call. I stared at it, goosebumps rising along my arms. "Answer," Daniel mouthed. I did, putting it on speaker. Chloe didn't say hello. "Why is some random number calling me?" she demanded. Daniel and I exchanged a look. "I don't know," I said, voice as neutral as I could manage. "Must be annoying, getting weird calls from numbers you don't recognize." She rambled something about spam and hung up. We sat there in silence. I felt like I was going to throw up. Could it be a coincidence? Daniel asked weakly. "Maybe," I said, but my gut said otherwise. I gave it a day. Then I went to Liam in person. He works at a cafe we used to go to, and asked if anyone had contacted him pretending to be me. He swore no, showed me his DMs clean. So, whoever sent those screenshots hadn't even bothered to create a real fake conversation. They just edited them in some app. That night, I scrolled back through my messages with Chloe, looking for anything that might prove intent a loose thread. I found one from a month earlier, when I'd apologized for snapping at her about the venue. Her reply, "Don't worry. If you're not ready, better to find out now than after the party, LOL." My skin prickled. At the time, I'd brushed it off. Now, it felt like the tip of a very large, sharp iceberg. I knew confronting her, without proof, would just give her a chance to spin. PR people are professional liars with nice lighting. So I did something that felt gross but necessary. I baited my own sister. I invited her over for wine under the guise of girl talk. I casually brought up some old gossip about a mutual friend who'd faked screenshots to expose a cheating boyfriend. "That's psychopathic behavior," I said, watching her face carefully. "I don't know how people have the time to edit messages like that." Chloe laughed, flipping her hair. "Please. There's literally an app for it now. Takes like 5 minutes. If I ever wanted to ruin someone, I'd do it way more creatively." I hit record on my phone as she went into detail about how easily she could build a narrative if she wanted to. That's when I knew. Not just suspected. Knew. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying the conversation in my head, my stomach twisting. The next morning, I told Daniel everything. I played him the recording. I showed him the WhatsApp status. I showed him Liam's messages. He listened, his face going from confused to horrified to furious. "I'm so sorry I doubted you," he said quietly, pulling me into his chest. "I should have trusted you immediately." We sat on the floor of my living room, backs against the couch, talking about what to do. Cut her off quietly? Confront her privately? Tell my parents? Cancel the engagement party? The thing about growing up in a family that thrives on perception is that the story they tell about you matters almost as much as what actually happened. I knew if I tried to handle this quietly, my sister would spin it into Emma overreacted, Emma is jealous, Emma is dramatic as always. That's when the idea for the surprise was born. If Chloe's weapon was narrative, I'd take it away from her in the one place she thought she was untouchable, in front of an audience. We didn't cancel the engagement party. We upgraded it. Daniel and I booked a slightly bigger function room, added a projector, and made sure everyone important was invited. Family, close friends, the aunties who carry gossip like Olympic torches. I told Chloe she'd be giving a speech as my maid of honor. She looked thrilled, already drafting in her notes app, no doubt preparing some revisionist history about our unbreakable sister bond. What she didn't know was that I had my own speech. The night of the party, I spent an hour in the bathroom trying not to hyperventilate. Lily helped me pin my hair back, her hands steadier than mine. "You don't have to do this," she said softly. "I know," I replied, staring at my own reflection. "But if I don't, she'll keep doing this forever. To me, to Maya, to whoever doesn't fit the story she wants." So, there we are, back in that moment. Me with the microphone, Chloe across the room, the screenshot frozen on the screen behind me. I took a breath that felt like swallowing glass. Most of you have probably heard that Daniel and I had a bit of a rough patch a few months ago. I began. Murmurs. A few awkward coughs. Some of you might have even heard that I was having second thoughts, or that I was messaging an ex. I clicked the remote. The fake screenshots appeared, blown up for everyone to see. I heard Chloe suck in a breath. These messages were sent to Daniel from an anonymous number. I continued. At first, he believed them. I don't blame him. On the surface, they look real, and the person who sent them said they were just looking out for him. But they weren't real. They were manufactured, edited, designed to look like I was betraying him. My dad frowned, leaning forward in his seat. Mum's hand flew to her mouth. We did some digging, I said. Talked to the alleged ex, checked the number. Recorded a few conversations. I clicked again. The WhatsApp profile with the Do It With Style status appeared. Then, a short audio clip. Chloe's voice, laughing, explaining how easy it is to fake screenshots, saying, if I ever wanted to ruin someone, I'd do it way more creatively. The room went dead silent. Chloe shot to her feet, face drained of color. Emma, what are you doing? She hissed. Finishing my story, I replied, my own voice shaking now for different reasons. Because for once, you don't get to be the narrator. I set the microphone down gently. Chloe, you were my maid of honor. You were supposed to protect this relationship, not try to blow it up, because yours fell apart. I don't know if you did this because you were jealous, or because you can't stand not being the center of attention, or because you honestly believed you were saving Daniel from me. I just know I can't have you in my life while you're willing to play with people's lives like their PR campaigns. I turned to Daniel. He squeezed my hand. So tonight, I said, picking up the mic one last time, we're still going to celebrate. We're going to celebrate love that survives sabotage, honesty that survives lies, and boundaries that should have been set a long time ago. But we're not going to pretend everything is fine. Chloe, you're no longer my maid of honor. You're free to leave whenever you like. You could feel the oxygen leave the room. Someone dropped a fork. My aunt whispered, Ya Allah, under her breath. Chloe stood there, trembling, eyes shiny with rage. For a second I thought she'd apologize, or deny, or burst into tears. Instead, she spat. You are insane, grabbed her clutch and marched out, heels clicking like gunshots. The door swung shut behind her. A long, brittle silence settled over the room. Then Lily, bless her chaotic soul, started clapping. Slowly, then faster. A few other people joined in. Daniel kissed my temple. Mum stared at me like she didn't recognize me. Dad looked furious. Not at me, I realized, but at the empty doorway. We did still have a party. It was weird and raw and not at all the Instagram-ready engagement I'd once pictured, but it was real. People came up to us quietly saying versions of, we're proud of you, and we had no idea. And in one case, your sister tried something similar with my relationship, so yeah. That night, when Daniel and I collapsed into bed, my dress unzipped and my mascara smeared, he said, you know that was the bravest and scariest thing I've ever seen you do, right? I laughed into his chest, half hysterical, half relieved. If I can do that, marriage will be a breeze. And that's where I originally thought my story ended. With the big reveal, the sister storming out, the couple united, the boundaries drawn. Of course, real life doesn't tie itself up that neatly. If the credits rolled here, this would already be a wild ride. Opie essentially turned her engagement party into a live action. Here's why my sister is no longer invited to major life events, TED Talk. And honestly, I'm not even mad. Chloe's behavior is textbook jealous sibling energy, but on steroids. It's one thing to be petty or snarky. It's another to fabricate evidence of cheating and send it to someone's fiancé. That's not, I'm hurting so I lashed out. That's calculated character assassination. The fact she used her PR skills, her literal career, to try and destroy a relationship because she couldn't handle being sidelined is grimly on brand. Opie, on the other hand, didn't just scream and throw a drink like a telenovela heroine, though that would have been iconic too. She documented, verified, cross-checked, built a case. You can tell she's a project manager. She basically built a PowerPoint for emotional justice. Some will say the public call-out was too much, that it should have been handled privately. But here's the thing, Chloe's attack was already public, just in the dark. She was creating a narrative that would have quietly spread through the family and friends if Opie hadn't yanked it into the light. Daniel gets points for listening, revising his initial doubt, and standing beside Opie on stage, literally and metaphorically. Lily deserves a supporting actress nomination for the first clap. The parents? Kicking the can down the road so far, but you can see Dad's inner lawyer waking up. Now, as any seasoned Reddit lurker knows, the real chaos often comes after the big reveal, when the dust starts to settle and everyone scrambles to pick a side. Time for the update. I didn't expect so many people to care about my messy family saga, but writing the first part out was strangely therapeutic. A few of you asked what happened with Chloe afterwards and whether my parents ever took a stand.
So here's the rest.
The morning after the engagement party, my phone looked like it had been through a war. Missed calls from Mom, from my aunties, from an unknown number I was 99% sure was Chloe using someone else's phone. Dozens of messages in the family WhatsApp group. Half of them variations of what happened, are you okay? And half of them my uncle sending reaction gifs, because that man lives for drama. I ignored my phone for an hour and made pancakes with Daniel instead. We ate them on the balcony, legs tangled, the city buzzing below us like nothing unusual had happened. Then, fortified with carbs and love, I started opening messages. Mom had left a voice note that started with, "Emma, what you did last night was completely unnecessary," and ended with, "Call me when you are ready to talk properly." Dad's text, though, said, "I want to hear your side without yelling. Lunch? Just us four." I took a screenshot of that and sent it to Lily with, "Is this a trap?" She replied, 100%, but I also think you should go with Daniel. We agreed to meet my parents at their place that afternoon. The drive there felt like going back to an exam venue where you once had a panic attack. My palms were sweaty. Daniel squeezed my knee at every red light. Mom opened the door, eyes puffy, but she hugged me. It was stiff, but it was a hug. Daniel got a nod and a "hello, Daniel," in her polite guest voice. We sat at the dining table, the same one where we'd had 1,000 family dinners and a few notable breakdowns. Dad had that look he gets when he's about to negotiate a contract. Serious, but not angry.
Yet.
He began. "What you did last night," he said slowly, "was a lot." I breathed in. So was what she did. He held up a hand. "We are not saying she did nothing wrong. I just want to understand exactly what happened from you."
So I laid it all out.
Again. The anonymous messages, the fake screenshots, the WhatsApp status, the recording about editing texts. I showed them the evidence on my phone, slid it across the table. Daniel filled in gaps where I faltered. Mom listened with her hand over her mouth. At one point she whispered, "Ya Rab," under her breath when she heard the recording. When I finished, there was a long silence. The kitchen clock ticked obnoxiously loudly.
Finally, Dad sighed.
"This is serious," he said. "This is not just sisters fighting." "No," I said. "This is her trying to destroy my relationship and then showing up in a matching dress to cut the cake." Mom winced. "You could have told us privately," she said. We could have spoken to her. But to humiliate her like that in front of everyone, she humiliated herself. I replied, quieter now. I was tired of yelling. I just put the facts on a screen. She counted on you never believing me over her. That's why she did it secretly. If I hadn't exposed it publicly, she would deny and twist until somehow I was the crazy one. Mom went quiet. I could see the war behind her eyes. Loyalty to her firstborn versus the horror of what that firstborn had done.
Dad surprisingly nodded.
"I understand why you did it the way you did," he said. "I don't love it, but I understand." Daniel spoke up. "I almost left your daughter because of those fake messages," he said gently. "I love Emma. I also grew up in a family where we don't talk about things. We just let them rot. I'm glad she didn't let this rot." Mom wiped at her eyes. "She's still your sister," she said to me. "For now," I replied. "That title needs to mean something." We left it there. Raw, unresolved, but aired out. Dad said he was going to talk to Chloe, seriously. Mom said she needed time. Daniel, and I went home and binged some mindless show until my brain stopped buzzing. For about a week, Chloe was silent. No calls, no texts, no dramatic doorstep confrontations. It was almost eerie. I started to wonder if she was building some kind of PR counterattack. Then Maya, our younger cousin who is basically a pseudo-sister, sent me a screenshot from Chloe's private Instagram story. It was a black background text post. Imagine being so insecure you need to publicly lie about your own blood to make your relationship seem stronger. Some people are sicker than I thought. Underneath were replies from her friends. You don't deserve this. Stay strong, queen. The usual echo chamber. I stared at it, equal parts furious and exhausted. That was her move. Make herself the victim. Rewrite the narrative for an audience that didn't have all the facts. For about 5 seconds, I considered blasting her with my own story, posting the evidence, tagging her, going nuclear. Then I remembered how it felt to hold that microphone and how drained I'd been after. The idea of living online like that, constantly proving I wasn't the villain, made me want to lie down on the floor and never get up. So I didn't respond publicly. I blocked her on Instagram instead. I muted her on WhatsApp. I told my parents, gently, that I needed space and that I wasn't interested in reports of what Chloe said now. And then I focused on my actual life. Wedding planning, yes, but also just life.
Work. Date nights.
Therapy, highly recommend. Long walks where I tried to untangle which parts of my personality were actually me and which were just reactions to growing up in her shadow. About 2 months later, we had a tiny civil ceremony. Just me, Daniel, 2 witnesses, Lily and our friend James, and a celebrant in a sunlit room at the registry office. We'd always planned a bigger cultural wedding later, but after the chaos of the engagement party, we wanted something that was just ours, drama-free. We didn't invite our families. I didn't tell them until after. Mum cried when I called her with the news. Not the angry cry, the broken one. You got married without me, she said quietly. I did, I replied, tears in my own eyes. Because I wanted a day where no one could ruin anything.
She didn't argue.
I think on some level she got it. Fast forward to now. It's been almost a year since the engagement party fiasco, 8 months since our civil ceremony. I'm writing this from the tiny second bedroom that we turned into a home office/guest room, with Daniel snoring lightly in the next room because he fell asleep watching YouTube tutorials about fixing leaky taps. I'm low contact with my parents. Not estranged, but I see them on my terms. Chloe and I are effectively no contact. She did send one long email at one point, full of non-apologies like, I'm sorry if you felt hurt by my actions, and I was just trying to protect you from making a mistake, and you humiliated me. I think we're even now. I didn't reply. There's nothing left to say that hasn't already been projected onto a wall. The surprise that shocked everyone ended up being more than just the slideshow. It was me stepping out of the role I'd been assigned since childhood, the accommodating younger sister, the one who smooths things over, and choosing to be my own main character for once. Do I miss having a functional sister? Yeah. Sometimes I see sisters laughing together at brunch and feel this weird ache, like phantom limb pain. But then I remember that what I miss is the idea of a sister, not the reality of the person who tried to blow up my life. And on the nights when the guilt creeps in, when I wonder if I went too far, Daniel reminds me. She fired the first shot. You just stop pretending it was a water fight. We're planning a small, outdoor ceremony next year to celebrate with the friends and family who still show up. If my parents come, it will be with the understanding that Chloe is not invited and that any attempt to turn it into a redemption arc for her will end with them being escorted out. I've already briefed Lily. She's volunteered as security. So that's the real ending. Not a perfect family reunion, but a clear line in the sand. A life where love is chosen, not guilt. A marriage that started with a hard conversation and is stronger for it. And a sister who, for once, doesn't get the last word. Time for the character roast/round of applause. Opie, our narrator, is basically the embodiment of quiet kid who finally snapped and turned into a strategist. She's not vindictive for sport. She's reactive after a long pattern of being stepped on. Her surprise wasn't a petty stunt. It was a boundary drawn with a projector and a microphone. She didn't cook evidence or exaggerate. She brought receipts. The fact that she felt sick doing it and still did it anyway tells you this wasn't about drama, it was about survival. She gets an A+ for finally choosing herself, a B for maybe underestimating post-fallout emotional hangovers, and a gold star for scheduling therapy. Chloe is the case study. Insecurity in a sparkle blazer. She weaponizes the skills that make her good at PR, controlling narratives, image management, spin, and turns them inward on her own family. The faked messages stunt isn't just sibling rivalry, it's emotional sabotage with long-term consequences. She put Daniel's trust in Emma at risk, potentially their whole relationship, because she couldn't stand not being the protagonist. And when exposed, she didn't break down and say, "I need help." She doubled down, reframed herself as the victim online, and wrote a non-apology email that could be used in training materials for what not to do. She doesn't deserve permanent exile from humanity, but she absolutely deserves the social and relational consequences she's experiencing. This is what happens when your main loyalty is to your own image. Daniel is refreshingly human. He did what a lot of people would do at first, saw convincing evidence and wobbled. The key is that when Opie brought context and proof, he adjusted his stance, apologized, and stood by her, even on stage in front of everyone. He didn't try to play peacekeeper at the cost of her sanity. He backed her boundary instead of saying, "Can't you just forgive and move on?" That's huge. He gets a solid 9 out of 10, 1 point docked for not immediately going. Screenshots can be faked, I know my girl, but hey, we're grading on real-life curves here. The parents are complicated. They're people who worship peace, but what they mean is silence. Their instinct was to say, "You went too far," because anything that disrupts the veneer of family harmony feels like an attack. But given the evidence, Dad shifted more than I expected, growing from "this was a lot" to "this is serious." Mom is slower to adjust, stuck between protect the eldest and horror at what she did, but even she eventually stops pretending Emma is overreacting. They're not heroes, but they're also not beyond growth. Overall, this story is less evil sister gets destroyed and more woman finally stops editing herself for the comfort of people who benefit from her silence. The real plot twist isn't the slideshow. It's Opie realizing that the scariest thing isn't losing the family she has. It's never getting the life she deserves.